Dayton Planning Board for Wednesday, April 6th to order at 6:06 PM. If everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Gentlemen of the board, I'm going to entertain a motion to confirm the next meeting date of April 20th, 2022 at Old Town Hall at 1111 Somerset Avenue, Dayton, Mass.
Make that motion.
Motion has been made. Is there and second? And any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. We'll move on to agenda item number 4A, and that is the public hearing continued for Pure Oasis Grow LLC, 620 Spring Street and 0 Summer Street, map 4, lot 170 and 405, special permit site plan review. Mr. Grossman, nice to see you, sir. If you would please identify yourself with your name and your affiliation.
Hello. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Brian Grossman, attorney with Bowditch and Dewey on behalf of the applicant, Pure Oasis. Also with me is representatives and owners of Pure Oasis, Kevin Hart and Kobe Evans. And we have a representative from the engineering company as well. I know we only have 4 board members, and I think we have a fairly light lift tonight in terms of information to convey to you. We've gone back and forth with peer review. They came back with a couple additional questions. I think there was some confusion with some information we had provided previously, but they didn't seem to have or seem to see. So we've provided an update again today in terms of they had asked for a location of snow storage on the property to be identified. That is shown on the plan. I think it just wasn't on the plan sheet they expected. They were missing some sheets of the supporting statement. We had provided that. Again, I think they seem to not have that for some reason, so we provided that again, and I think they should have that now. And then lastly, they'd asked for a calculation on landscaping. And we provided a calculation from Level Design today that demonstrated that the proposal meets the required landscaping requirements in terms of the amount provided, which is about $39,000, and required is about $25,000. And so with that, I think that's, as far as we know, the outstanding obligations in terms of information. I know we did have a site walk with you, Chairman Ryans and Mr. Woods, a couple weeks ago at the site, and then the visit to In Good Health, which I hope you and Mr. Woods found helpful. We think it clearly demonstrated the type of quality facility that Pure Oasis is going to construct. The folks from In Good Health, as you know, are acting as consultants. So the very similar systems, both in terms of air quality, security, and other types of systems, will be in place at the Pure Oasis facility. We're going to be a very high quality, very secure facility, and hopefully a win-win for Pure Oasis and the town.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you and Mr. Jones for letting us go to Brockton. Mr. Woods and myself, I was very impressed with the facility. Again, security, their infiltration system was absolutely amazing. You smelled nothing when you walked in that door. The only time you smelled something was when the receptionist pulled the window back, and that was it. And the employees were very, very respectful, very professional, and again, I was highly impressed. I'm going to open it up to the board members if they do have any questions of Mr. Grossman this evening before he does leave the podium, or their engineer who is present. So,
I only had one question with the package that was submitted. It's a really minor question. Let's see if I've got the page number here, so I can. There's no page number. On 2922. Under the section 2, compliance with special permit criteria, it talks about hours of operation shall not be between 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. And below that, your response says, Pure Oasis will comply with the hours of operation as determined by the planning board. The restrictions concerning the business hours for retail facilities is inapplicable to the proposed cultivation use. And then you continue, Pure Oasis respectfully requests the planning board permit its hours of operation to be from 8 AM to 8 PM, Monday through Sunday. I remember reading your previous submission, I thought you guys were gonna have 2 or 3 shifts of personnel on your property, managing this or managing the business. Is that not happening any longer? Is it just 2 shifts?
There will be multiple shifts, how they're staggered. Kobe or Kevin, I don't know if you've got more information on that. But.
I think 2 shifts should be sufficient, and then
Okay.
there's no work that happens overnight, so we may have a security guard on the premises overnight.
Okay.
No work would be conducted after the weekend.
Okay, so the hours will truly be 12 hours, 8 AM to 8 PM, and your 2 shifts.
The shifts will overlap.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because you're having overlapping shifts. That was my only question for clarification on what you submitted.
Gentlemen of the board, any other questions?
None for me.
So,
The landscaping was all squared away from our engineers.
I believe it was.
They didn't have any questions or comments on the actual landscape plans, as I recall. They just asked for the calculation.
Get the
And so
calculations,
we've now
right.
provided that. So
That's all.
if
squared
they
away.
have feedback, we just gave you the calculation today. So if they have feedback on that, I'm sure we'll hear about it. And if they have additional questions, we'll respond so that we can be ready to go forward, I think, at the next hearing, which I think maybe May 4th.
okay, great. So, gentlemen of the board, what I'd like to do is that I'm going to entertain a motion to take Pure Oasis under advisement until we can get them on the agenda for May 4th, so that way it gives the members an opportunity to, again, look through all the comments from the peer review engineers, any of the information that may be provided from the applicants to the board. That would give us an opportunity to look through those documents and make the proper informed decisions on the matter.
So move.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to take Pure Oasis LLC under advisement until May 4th,
Here at Old Town.
and it'll be here at Old Town Hall at 1111 Somerset Avenue. Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
6 p.m.?
6 PM. And hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Gentlemen, we'll see you back again on May 4th at 6 PM.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's all right.
We take agenda item number 4B, and that's the review, discuss, and act on the chapter land release recommendation of 624 Middle Street, map 8, lot 31. This is standard fare. We always receive these when they take land out of chapter, and that is agricultural land that's taken out of chapter for a commercial use. You have all the accompanying documents. The land is located at the solar array on Middle Street. Let me just read this brief statement here, and this is a notice of intent to convert to other use, Mass General Law, Chapter 61A, Section 14, excuse me. And this is owner Joanne Racine, trustee of the Joanne Racine Living Trust, a portion of land located at 624 Middle Street, assesses map parcel ID number 008.0-0031-0000.0, to whom it may concern. You are hereby notified that Joanne Racine, trustee of the Joanne Racine Living Trust, intends to convert a portion of her land situated at 624 Middle Street to a solar-powered electricity generating facility, which land is now classified and taxed as agricultural or horticultural land under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 61A. A Board of Assessors statement of agricultural or horticultural land tax lien recorded with the North Bristol County Registry of Deeds in Book 5234, page 280 is enclosed. So, gentlemen, I'm going to entertain a motion to approve that the planning board is recommending the chapter land release of land located at 624 Middle Street, map 8, lot number 31.
So moved.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you said this is located on, where there are currently, solar panels, or a solar farm, or is it being converted
It's
from
being-
chapter land to non-chapter land so that it can happen?
It's gonna be converted from chapter land to non-chapter land.
So then, is in the follow-on use, we're expecting to be a solar farm?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay,
This is the one that's joined with the Tremont Street, if you remember.
The Cavallo,
It's the one,
the Cabral property.
yeah,
It's
Okay.
actually on Middles.
It's on Middle Street.
middle, yeah,
it's Middle and Tremont, so
Got
it's
it.
on that corner.
She's
So
gonna-
it's the two properties together.
to join them.
Her intent is to leave a section of the land for farming. She wants to have the, grazing animals there also.
Got it, okay, that was my only question. Thank you.
You're welcome. So gentlemen,
Who
there
made
is,
the motion and seconded?
yes.
Yes, it has.
It was,
Motion I
It
second.
was made and seconded, yes, it was.
any further discussion on the motion? Gentlemen, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you. This next item on the agenda is I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4B, number 2, and that is the 2021 Serpent Commission member appointment. That should be 23, Jerry, 2022 to
Oh,
2023.
my apologies, yes.
Just as a correction,
I
it
went
is,
backwards, my apologies.
and that is for 2022 to 2023, the Serpent Commission member appointment. In your packet, this is standard fare. The planning board sends a representative to Serpent to work directly with Serpent, and Mr. Cavallo has been our representative over the last year, and I want to thank Jeff for all the hard work he's done, attending these meetings and sending down a lot of pertinent information to the planning board that we could use in regards to, solar arrays, et cetera. So at this time, I am going to entertain a motion to send Mr. Jeffrey Cavallo, if he accepts.
I mean, I yield if anybody else would like the opportunity. I accept the nomination.
Mr. Cavallo accepts, so I'm going to entertain a motion to appoint Mr. Jeffrey Cavallo as our Serped Commission member for the years 2022 to 2023.
I'll make that motion to,
Motion has been made by Mr. Figueredo. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Mr. Cunha.
I believe I abstain, right?
Yes. Any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
thank you.
Let the record reflect that Mr. Cavallo has abstained. The vote is 3-0 approval and 1 abstention. Thank you, Mr. Cavallo.
Very welcome, sir.
I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4, B, number 3, and that is, I'm going to read that into record. This is the Community Preservation Committee resignation, and this is from Mr. Robert Woods, and it was sent to our office manager, Kerry Easterday, on Thursday, March 24th, 2022, at 7:49 a.m., subject to CPC. Mrs. Easterday, I'm writing to you to render my resignation effective immediately as a planning board representative to the Community Preservation Committee. I'm choosing not to disclose my reasons for my resignation at this time. Sincerely, Mr. Robert Woods, and it was sent from his iPhone. We do not have to vote this evening because it's not on the agenda to send a representative to the CPC, but we are going to have to do that, so I'd like to see if we can get it on our agenda for possibly next month, if we have space.
Yes, we have nothing on the agenda for, you mean next meeting?
Next meeting, I'm sorry, April 20th meeting, I'm sorry.
So we have nothing on the agenda for our next meeting, so we obviously have room.
We could wait until the 4th of May because they don't meet until the 3rd Thursday of the month, of every month, so we could wait until the May 4th meeting.
You wanna wait? Did you wanna discuss, did you want to discuss who you,
Yeah,
so that everyone can consider?
So again, Mr. Woods is no longer representative. I have been the at-large member to the CPC for the last year, formerly serving as chairman for many years. So we're gonna have to, you know, send someone from the board. Mr. Woods is no longer available. I'm one of the at-large members. And, you know, they meet on the third Thursday of the month at 6 PM, and they've been meeting behind us at prime time. And what community preservation does, I'll just be very quick, is that 1% of your real estate tax after the first $100,000 is put into a fund, and those monies are spent on historical projects, affordable housing, and open space. And monies go into those different categories. The CPC, what they do is that they're a quasi-government board of 9 members. They vote individually, residents or anyone can come in with a submission for an application, and what they do is they do an application for funding for application for eligibility first, and the committee usually takes that under advisement, and then they'll go forward with an application for funding. So it could be a very lengthy process depending on the applicant, but the committee's been moving, you know, in a pretty decent direction, and we just need to send someone, you know, when, you know, for their next meeting in May. So we're gonna have to, you know, take that, under consideration on who we're gonna send. Or who's gonna volunteer, I should say. So with that being said, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 4C, and that is the informal discussion with Mr. Eric Weinstein of Borrego Solar, and this is, the standalone energy storage system. Gentlemen, you have the floor. If you would please come to the podium, identify yourselves with your name and your affiliation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Eric Weinstein from Borrego. We have Dean Smith as well. Dean is our civil engineer. I'm a project developer at Borrego. I've actually got, I know there's a presentation that's up on the screen, but I can pass out some handouts. Might be a little bit easier to follow along if that works for you.
Sure.
If you have, I'll take one.
Feel free, please.
Keep one for myself.
Thanks. You got enough there? We can share if you need.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You have a few more for anybody else.
Before Mr. Weinstein begins, I just want to say that we did have a informal presentation back, I want to say, was it in October or November of last year? I believe there was a brief informal presentation. Am I correct? It was October or November of last year? Yeah, a few months ago, there was an informal presentation. It was myself, the building commissioner, and our town administrator. And, you know, I thought it was pretty informative to see, you know, what they're attempting to do. And I'll just say this is that I'm sure you gentlemen are aware that the town of Dayton, working internally in the hard work of our office manager, have put together a standard operating procedure for standalone battery storage. And I know this is very similar to. So, gentlemen, you have the floor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so as mentioned, wanted to introduce this as a project type, so a standalone energy storage project off of Maynard Lane in town. It looks like this screen may not actually, it's gonna go down, not up, so I'll try to have this follow along.
Yeah, it's because it's opening in
It's
Edge
opening
instead of
PDF.
Acrobat.
Yeah, let me just see if I can back out. Try this. All right, much better. Okay. So again, introductory about an energy storage project here. In terms of company background, like who are we? Borrego, I think some of you, if not all of you, are already familiar with us from solar projects we have in town off of Elm Street. We do solar plus energy storage, renewable energy projects in general, and what we're contemplating here is a standalone energy storage project as opposed to something paired with solar. So you're familiar with us. We're the biggest installer of solar and energy storage in Massachusetts. So we've got a lot of projects throughout the Commonwealth, particular, acute market share down in southeastern Massachusetts as well. So what is battery storage and how does this work for anyone that's not familiar? Batteries, essentially, when they're connected to the electrical grid, it doesn't look like a big Duracell battery, but what they are grid-connected modular lithium-ion batteries. And what that...
Oh, you just lost your Zoom connection.
There you go. That's okay, we're not on
All right,
Zoom.
okay.
We're not on Zoom, so don't worry about it.
All right. So essentially what you're doing is you're connecting a battery to the transmission grid. And when you do that, you're connecting the battery to charge during times of low demand and dispatch that energy at times of high demand. So what you're effectively doing is think about the hottest day of the year in July when everyone turns on their air conditioning and there's a huge amount of demand for electricity. The electric grid operators need to call on your generators to generate that additional marginal electricity that everybody needs to consume. What batteries do is they help to smooth out the supply and demand dynamics of the electricity grid. So you're able to store electricity when it's generated by renewable resources at times that those resources are generating, store it, and then dispatch that energy at times where it's needed, and you're avoiding the need to call on these fossil fuel peaker generators for those times when energy is needed most. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna follow on here too.
You're storing electricity at a lower rate and you're selling it back at a higher rate.
Yeah, so how does the
By
project make
thereby
money?
making a profit on storing the electricity.
Exactly, you're selling buy low,
You're selling
sell
it
high.
back at a higher rate.
So basically,
During a higher
there is
demand.
no arrays there at all.
There's no solar, it's just batteries. You're shifting the time of use of the electricity that's generated.
Yeah, you're storing it, you're effectively charging batteries by buying electricity at this rate. And then during the peak times where the
Selling it
use rate goes up, you sell it here. That's your profit. And then you have to take out the difference for construction and operation.
Interesting.
Yeah, so, where are these coming from? What are we doing to site these projects? We're identifying and developing transmission-connected projects in Massachusetts, and that's contributing to the Commonwealth's environmental protection goals. And it's avoiding the reliance on fossil fuel peaker plants, as I mentioned. And by doing that, you're increasing grid reliability and doing that through the Clean Peak Energy Standard program. And I'll get into that in a second, what that is. But in terms of site identification, like how do we determine and find a good site for a project like this? We're looking for project footprints that are located adjacent to existing transmission infrastructure. So when you see the transmission corridors that run through the back acreage, not the lines that run on the street, but the corridors that run through the back acreage, that's what we're looking for, and we're looking to be as adjacent to those as possible.
Those are the high voltage lines you're
Those are the
installing
high
right next to, look at it on the Google Earth.
Yes.
It's that bowling alley right there.
Yes. So that's a starting point, but we're doing a rigorous analysis on the technical and economic feasibility of interconnecting at those particular points, and we're layering on consideration for screening from public view and abutters, and of course minimizing environmental impacts as well.
Are you doing line voltage tie-in, or are you gonna have to step down and do something?
You have to step up the voltage from the battery system to the actual transmission system itself.
Okay, yeah, so you're not doing anything at whatever that is, 10,000 volts or whatever. Is it 100,000 volts going through there?
The line there is 115 kV.
150. that's
Actually,
fine.
I think there's 345 in there as well.
Okay, that's
There will be, if there's not already, there will be three-phase, I don't know, like 23 or 13, but.
wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll get into that in a moment as well.
Mhm.
So where's this project coming from? Clean Peak Energy Standard that I mentioned. August 2018, Governor Baker signed an act to advance clean energy, which directed the Department of Energy Resources, the DOER, to establish the Clean Peak Energy Standard. And it's the Clean Peak Energy Standard that's really promoting these battery energy storage projects. And like I mentioned before, the battery projects that we're developing are storing off-peak energy produced by clean renewable resources, and then dispatching that energy during the seasonal demand peaks, where it would otherwise be produced by fossil fuel generators. So in that way, battery projects are effectively contributing to the Commonwealth's clean energy and environmental goals. Just move along here. So, Mr. Cavallo, you had mentioned like, where is this project and what's it sited next to? So when we look for a good site, this is a really good site. We're looking at the blue box here. This is off of Maynard Lane from like 30,000 feet up. You can see the transmission corridor running from northeast to southwest. Access to the blue box, the project footprint area, would be off of Maynard Lane. We are in the corner of town, so if you're looking closely, glasses on, you can see it's right next to Rehoboth.
Yeah, you're right there. Yep. Properties northwest of town.
Yes. So this is a conceptual system design to give you a sense for what we're looking at here. Same picture with an overlay on it. Just a few things to call out. So again, you're directly adjacent to the transmission corridor that already exists. So you'd have to cross that. That's well over 100 feet away from the actual access road on Maynard Lane. You can also see to the north in Rehoboth is the under construction Reynolds Ave substation that you're probably already familiar with.
I was gonna ask you the question, that is this substation being renovated, is that coincided with what you guys were attempting to do, or?
It's a good question. No, that's happening on its own right. I think they may have already been to, I guess it would be in Rehoboth, to the planning board there to establish that. That's already under construction. That's through National Grid. That's for reliability projects that they're already working on. Why this is a good site is we're directly, well, for screening purposes and environmental reasons, but we're also directly next to the substation, which is important for interconnection. So you can see that it's not built and it's not in this image, but we'd be interconnecting at the substation just to the north on National Grid property, as opposed to needing to get any easements through other properties to interconnect in a different manner. You can also see that the project is on the far side of the transmission corridor. There's ample setback from public view and abutters, and we've got substantial screening from vegetative buffer. So tree screening all the way around, again, on the corner of town on one side, National Grid on one side, transmission corridor on the other. So a good site. All right, a little bit of background on what these battery units look like. What you're looking at here is,
Just a quick question before you go there. How many acres are you looking at on a site?
yes, so within the fenced area here, it's called out in the packet. It's 8.85 acres. Again, conceptual layout, but to give you a sense for the size here.
Thank you.
The battery equipment, so what you're looking at is the POW and Centipede product in this picture. Borrego, we select the most bankable, most commercially viable products at any given time. So as we're going through development, we're going to continue to evaluate what the best possible product is to be using. So this is, sixth generation of lithium-ion battery product. You can see they're getting sleeker and sleeker looking, and that's going to continue to be the case as technology progresses. But we're always using the best-in-class products on our
Now,
facilities.
this is similar to the BESS system, battery energy storage systems. This is similar where these units themselves are gonna have individual batteries on them on racks, or how was this?
Yes, so these are all modular systems. So whether it's a very small project or a project paired with solar, or if it's a standalone system, you can stack these products together. So like you can see even in there kind of how it looks modular, and then within each of these units there are racks of batteries as you described.
And there'll be 35 to 40 batteries on each rack, and they'll be independently timed, where if there is fire, they'll just, epoxy will shut them down.
There,
Right there are monitoring for a number of different conditions, temperature rises, off-gassing, different things like that, and there will be automatic disconnects if something goes haywire as far as those monitored
Yeah,
conditions.
they don't run in series, they run in parallel, so they'd be able to just shut themselves down.
And it's similar to maybe other projects that you've seen in the past in terms of the batteries themselves. There are cells that have containment, and then those are combined into modules, which have a secondary containment, and then those are assembled on the racks, which are a tertiary containment. So there's 3 levels of containment from the batteries themselves, the battery cells.
Okay.
Will there be any screening around these things here so that the people that are fairly close to that, what are you planning to do for that?
Yeah, so you can see in the layout here as well, we're gonna leave a setback here for vegetative buffer. So this is a wooded parcel right now. We would leave, significant amount of space to make sure it's not something that is in their line of sight. And if you've ever been out to Maynard Lane, you can also tell from this cul-de-sac at the end of the road, you're looking directly across, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 different transmission lines. It's a ways to the woods there.
And these aren't terribly tall. The height of them is between 10 and 11 feet.
Oh, they are that high?
They're between 10 and 11 feet. So it'd be similar to the height of solar modules, the same. So we can plant landscape buffers where there is an opening in the visual and provide additional buffering with new landscape as well.
This looks like.
If I were living in the neighborhood, I would rather not have to look at them. And that's my whole concern. I'm sure there's gonna be some people here when you guys decide to come back, so.
As part of the studies that we'll do in preparation for all of this, we'll do a sound study. They'll go out and they'll measure the ambient noise levels. They'll model what this would be with the equipment on site. And we're kind of anticipating that we're gonna have to have a sound abatement wall to meet the requirements so that we don't create a nuisance noise for our
What
neighbors.
is the noise?
And that-
Yeah, it's
Go ahead.
sure. It's so there's a coolant system that's part of this. So there's HVAC. That's basically the noise. The inverters, which are the same as you'd have for solar, and the coolant system. So the HVAC as well, which is just an air conditioner. That's the only noise that is associated with the project. But to address your concern, like your thought was, well, if I was a neighbor, I wouldn't want to look at it. That's part of the reason this is a good site, right? Like any neighbor that's looking across the way, the first thing they're seeing is a transmission corridor. So that's your first line of sight, and then beyond that, you're going to have vegetative buffer.
It's 350 feet.
Yeah.
To the nearest resident.
Yeah.
250 feet to
That's
the end of
not
the
much.
cul-de-sac.
That's really not much at all.
250 feet from
To the end of the
end of the transmission corridor.
Maynard Lane cul-de-sac, just the end of it, right end of, like right to the end here, to here. 250 feet.
Yep. So we'd leave a little bit of buffer after the transmission corridor itself. But like to your point, like we want to do as good of a job as possible to make sure this is screened off and it's not something that people are looking at.
I mean, I hope you can understand the fact that what we do is for what's best for our residents, and that's one of the things that I really would appreciate.
Yeah, and it's something as we continue the development of a project, one of the things that we'll do is we'll put together essentially like a visual rendering, so you can kind of get a generated view of what that looks like.
I'm very familiar with this property. Very familiar.
I'm looking at
I've
the, I'm looking
parked
at
the
a,
most.
I'm sorry. Oh, you
I've
pardon me?
heard the-
Oh, I've seen your work.
looking at the, I'm looking at the street view at the end of that road, looking across the power line corridor. Now, so you can see the trees 250 feet away.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we'll put together a rendering so you can have a sense for it. It's like, yes, you can see the other end of the transmission corridor, but there is infrastructure that's already existing even prior to seeing this project. Okay. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about was a permitting path for a project, and as the chairman had pointed out, We had some preliminary conversations with the building inspector, as well as some others in town, including the fire chief, town administrator, as well. And we did receive some feedback from the fire chief regarding water availability that we'll account for in our designs. So, those conversations were held to have start to identify what the preferred permitting path would be. I know the initial thought was to be looking towards the solar use category as a way to be permitting energy storage standalone projects as well. You earlier alluded to the SOP memo that was circulated for solar plus energy storage, so paired projects. There are a few aspects of that probably don't apply directly to this type of project, given that it's a standalone storage project as opposed to paired with solar. And one additional item to that was I know that the board is, or maybe by committee, is working on a solar and energy storage bylaw amendment. Currently, with my understanding was the intention to get that to a public comment period on May 6th. So I'd be interested to understand where that's going. I think the SOP memo is helpful guidance for us to understand, what's important in town and what are the things that you're thinking about in terms of citing these projects. Even if it's not directly applicable to a standalone project, I suspect that that'll be informative to your bylaw process. I would say, Dean and I both would be happy to provide our own perspective from Borrego or industry perspective on, what it takes to cite these projects effectively from our side, as well as to make sure we're adhering to what the town wants and the requirements that you want to impose on these types of things. We're committed to working with you through this. This is the intent of this conversation now, is just to let you know that we know that that's in progress. If we can be a part of that and be helpful towards your creation of that, then we'd like to be able to do so. The last bullet point here is the Energy Facility Siting Board identified as well. So that is basically a tangential agency to the Massachusetts DPU, the Department of Public Utilities. That's an avenue that we're likely to have to go down further down the road. It's not something that we need to think about today, but what the FSB does is they provide comprehensive zoning review of energy facilities like this. So it's very common for these types of projects to do so. That's, like I said, a little bit down the road, and prior to even really thinking about that, we want to make sure that we're working with the town in a way that we're citing a project in a location and, thinking about setbacks or thinking about buffers or anything like that, that we can shape this project to the bylaw that you're already going to establish. And then, we'll be able to fit that together much better.
How many acres is owned by this entity overall there?
It's about 17 and a half acres from the entire parcel.
Okay.
It's about close to 9 is what we pointed out earlier on the
Is
project
it
footprint.
feasible to say that you're going to just put this on there, or are you gonna be coming back afterwards to put in solar panels?
No, this is a standalone project, so the differentiation can probably be thought of most directly about interconnection. So once you're interconnected in one way, it's really, it's a standalone project.
So what happens to the remaining land?
So, let's see. If you're looking here, the remaining land, a lot of it is actually the transmission easement. So that's land that National Grid uses and has rights over, so nothing will happen to it. The additional land that you're describing is the buffer. It's gonna be woodland that we're leaving around the project area.
Okay.
I actually will call out, though, the SOP memo. I know there was a few things that don't immediately jive with what I'm showing you on here. I think you pointed to a 200-foot setback from property lines. That may be most applicable to a single battery project or one battery with a solar plus battery operation. For something like this, in, I think, probably the top left-hand corner of the screen there, you're probably looking at about a 100-foot setback, 100, maybe a little bit more, but a 200-foot setback is pretty significant. So something that maybe is a little bit more applicable to a PV plus storage project.
What would the difference be though? I mean, in battery storage, because when we were doing the discussions for the setbacks on that, it was because of the tree lines. And for the fire department, that setback was established by the fire department.
Sure.
And for the public safety of the property line and the tree line.
Yeah.
So to come up with say the standalone versus a battery storage that was for solar, I don't see the difference on
Yeah.
that.
In my view,
I'm sorry, I'm glad that you brought that up, because that was my next question, because you keep stating standalone. Battery storage is battery storage no matter what way you look at it. You know, you can put all the, bells and whistles on it as you want, but it's still battery storage.
yeah.
And with the SOP that we presented and going forward, I'm not anticipating myself, this is just my opinion, any waiver of any sort going forward with this. You're gonna have to try to reconfigure what you wanna do up there to fit our standards, because I don't believe, this is just my opinion, I'm not gonna stray from this. We put a lot of hard work into this, and you keep referring to solar panels, arrays with battery storage as opposed to standalone. It's all the same thing. Still heat up to the same degrees. And I just saw you smirk. And they heat up to 1,100 degrees, and that's the concern that we have. We do not want any fires, we don't want any woodlands. We had a major forest fire in this town going back about 5 or 6 years ago, and they called in every piece of apparatus in Bristol County. I was there. I'm not a firefighter, but I just happened to be there present. And we don't want to see that. And we've worked very hard with these solar entities to try to get something done. I understand that, the DPU as well as the state is putting this out there because of all the, grants and monies that go forward with this, but again, as Mr. Figurito stated, public safety is our first and foremost position, and I'm not gonna stray by that. I'm sorry, we're running into situations now that, I understand through the Dover Amendment that, it's basically cities and towns have to swallow this. Well, we're not gonna swallow this as the way that everybody thinks that they want us to. So again, public safety is our first and foremost, because I keep hearing it's gonna be 8 megawatts, so, I don't understand what the difference could be. I know that it's the money difference. So if you're building 7 megawatts as opposed to 8 megawatts, you're probably losing $1 million. I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned again about public safety. So if you have to shrink your system to fit our needs and purposes, then that's possibly what's gonna have to be done. That's just my opinion, not the opinion of the board, again, so.
Sure, and as we have and we'll continue to do, we'll continue to, as we work through this, we'll be continuing to give you, semi-regular updates on our progress, and we'll be working with the fire chief on exactly that to make sure we're addressing concerns.
Because that was part of the discussion too that we had with the fire chief, is that, if you have over 800 feet or more of distance between, say, a house to a fire hydrant, then they may have to put a tanker or a pumper in between that just to send water to that. So again, this is a situation where this is copious amounts of water are needed to subdue these things.
Yeah.
Because I just want to say this, as everyone has seen on TV, you just had a large container ship that was coming over here with one of Ernie Bach's $800,000 electric Bentleys that literally went up in flames, and the Portuguese Navy and the government said, let it burn and let it sink. And that's exactly what they did. They weren't gonna put any firefighters anywhere near this thing, because they didn't know if these battery arrays emit, hazardous, waste coming out of these, that you're gonna breathe, that type of thing. So that's why the Portuguese government said, we're not gonna go anywhere near this thing, let it sink.
Yeah, well, like I said, we're certainly,
They just had a major fire over in Denmark 3 months ago that I saw. There was one of these systems that went up. And again, the country of Denmark just said, firefighters stay 1,000 feet away and just let it burn. Just let it melt.
Well, I think, just not to butt in, but just in regard for safety, and just kind of looking, I know this is a preliminary sketch, you know, it's not kind of a full dive into what it's gonna be, but at first glance, are those roadways that go around the array, or not arrays, but storage units, would those accommodate emergency vehicles
Yeah, absolutely.
and the turn radiuses?
That's the conversation we often have with the fire chief. One of the first things we'll be doing is asking, like, what turning radiuses do we need? No, the intent is to make sure that it's designed in a way that's gonna work for town, and we'll throughout the whole process and before commissioning and during commissioning after, like, we'll be working with the safety staff to make sure that there's emergency procedures in place, and we're aligned on that.
Yeah, these chemicals that say it burns, what are they? What are these chemicals from your end of it? I mean, if the fire department gets there and one of these things is, do they want to get close to it or they don't? That's my whole thing. I just for understanding, for learning purposes, I would like to hear your.
Well, I can't fully answer that right now. There is some off-gassing if there were to be a fire event. The HVAC units would carry much of that away and distribute it and dispel any concentrations.
Throughout the neighborhood, then?
That would be hazardous. Well, into the atmosphere, yes. But the whole idea is that the fire suppression system, the monitoring systems would be there to prevent that kind of an incident. They're improving the technologies all the time. So you do hear about events in other places around the world of fire events with these type of battery systems. But as Eric said earlier, we'll always be looking to the new improvements in the technology. The lithium-ion battery systems are the most energy dense and are the best selection today for this type of system, but they're developing other systems with zinc, sodium-based systems that would have different concerns in that regard and would be safer in the event of an incident. So we're always going to be looking to those other technologies as well, and this is going to be a fairly long process before this ever goes to construction. We're going to be going through years of permitting here with the local planning board and the local town, the community here. We would provide information meetings to the local community, any interested stakeholders. The state process that Eric mentioned, there will be public hearings involved with that through the DPU and the Energy Facilities Siting Board. So there's a long process with a lot of public input, and we want to be a good neighbor. We want to design a safe, reliable project. So there's a long road ahead, and you know, there's a lot of refinement and a lot of revision along the way.
I just want to state for the record, personally myself, I am not anti-solar in any way, shape, or form. I do believe in renewable energy. I just think that my personal opinion is it's been 5 years of just 150 miles an hour, like straight ahead, and then it's, you know, they're veering off a little bit. And you know, I know technology's changing every day, but it's, you know, I know that the DPU, they're still waiting, they're sitting on megawatts and how they're gonna distribute that. They're still waiting on that. I think that they're waiting for the state legislature to go back in again to raise that threshold. So people like you can go out and do your business and, you know, install what you need to install. So they're looking at increasing that to get it onto the grid. So I'm, you know, I personally am friends with Mark Pacheco. I don't know if you know who he is, state senator. He's, you know, very instrumental in renewable energies and has traveled the world and, you know, spoken at many different places in regards to renewable energy. So I know he's been instrumental in working with the DPU in regards to trying to get those numbers increased too. So I'm glad that you guys came, and, you know, this is all for informational purposes, and again, you know, we'll probably have you again many times for informational purposes too, so continue if you would, please.
Sure.
We're going down a lot of rabbit holes,
Yeah.
but
All right.
this is very
Sorry
passionate
about that.
subject for all of us.
Yeah, well, this is the last slide, so I think we're there. Okay, what's next? I've already said so, but as we're going through this development process, we're gonna be in touch with you. So how do we start that? Like, we want to have presentations like this so we can introduce the project. We want to have continued feedback from you. We want to be soliciting any comments, any requirements, anything like that you think is going to be like something that should be going into this project. We want to know now so we can start designing for it. Anything reasonable we're going to include. Anything that like doesn't work technically or something like that, we'll discuss it with you and figure out a way to do it in a way that works for the town and something that works for a project. So, we'll plan to provide a plan synopsis to the building inspector. You've got, these slides are a pretty good start on what we've been working on so far. We'll continue to coordinate with the fire chief. We'll be back here, I'm sure, very soon, just to kind of brief you on the progress we're making. But at least at this point, like how I'd like to leave the meeting would be just to make sure that you guys are informed of what we're doing and understanding that you're working on or already have put a lot of work into the solar and storage bylaw. And if we can provide any feedback from us from our perspective, we'd certainly like to do that as part of making sure that we're doing what we need to do in our project.
You guys done one of these anywhere in the state?
Yeah, so we have energy storage projects throughout the state, throughout the country. Most of them are paired with solar projects. For economic reasons, now standalone energy projects, I know I've said that a few times, standalone energy storage has become economical as well. So you're seeing more and more of these pop up. So we've got a standalone project in Braintree. We've got one at UMass Amherst now. We've got,
Really, on campus?
yes,
Really?
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, we
They're already up, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt.
No,
The ones that you have already
We
in
ha-
state, they're already up and running?
we have some up and running. We have some in development, both.
Okay, and that's in Braintree and Amherst?
We have a battery in UMass Amherst. We've got a battery in Braintree. We've got a battery in New Bedford. I guess it would be Acushnet, New Bedford.
Acushnet?
Pushing it.
Yeah, the
Really?
Titleist facility. So we've got some of these. Those are not the scale of what this is, for the record. Also, PV plus storage projects, similar batteries. It's all the same battery. We've got a bunch of those. Off the top of my head, like there's several that we've just built in Freetown. I don't know if you've got any other ones you want to point out, but I think that's a pretty good.
Westport,
And these are I'm sorry.
Yeah, these are-
standalone.
They
These
were
are the
P-
standalone?
Those are PV plus,
Okay.
PV plus battery storage.
yes.
Where's the one in Wareham?
There are 4 in Wareham that are near completion. On Farm to Margaret Road, there's 2 systems there with storage. One off of Tohonet Road, and the 4th is, I can't recall where it is, but there's a 4th one in Wareham. And we also have 4 in Carver that are all near there. They all tie into the same substation system.
Which is standalones right now are in Braintree and UMass Amherst, and you have one on Acushnet.
Yeah,
Selectmen?
Acushnet, you wouldn't happen to, no, I go there all the
Yeah,
time. Do you,
what's the address down there, do you know?
have the address?
Do you remember?
the address for you off the top of my head. It's at
Did you get that to our office manager?
They're in the Pine.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if you could forward some information
Like
from,
check it.
those, 3 standalones that you have, or, 2 of the 3, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I'm interested in see what UMass has done up that way, so.
Is it on your website by chance?
I don't know that all of those are on the website, like in terms of marketing material, but at least a few of those are, for sure.
The Braintree one, maybe?
That one's on there.
Okay, I'll take a look at it.
That one's on there, and I think the Acushnet one might be on there too. We can just point you that way.
And we
So
can,
when
you
you
know, we
got-
can provide information to Carrie so that she can pass it along to you with
Yeah.
addresses. We could
Sure.
hopefully provide
That'd be great.
record drawings on those so that you can see what was involved there.
That'd be great. So when you got the approval for those standalones in Braintree, Amherst, UMass, right? And Acushnet, was that through the special permit process with their bylaws?
I can't tell you specifically on those towns what they did. Those are different processes. I wasn't necessarily part of those ones in particular, so I could find out for you.
And I wasn't the engineer on those, but I would suspect that they were.
I would suspect it would be that way, because I'd be interested to see how they approved them.
As
Yeah.
well.
That'd be great.
I would say for the most part, battery storage projects are like a relatively new thing for towns. So most towns, if not cities, don't have a bylaw that directly
Yeah,
addresses
they're
it.
catching
as
up like
you
we
know.
are,
Right.
catching up like we are.
Right, so
So-
that's why I'm wondering how they got approved.
So generally, they may be approved through a special permit process. Maybe they're looked at as a, off the top of my head, maybe it's a light industrial use, or maybe it's like a commercial use, or something that it can fit under that maybe isn't nameplate battery.
Okay,
So
that'd be great if I could get that information. And then, so I'm sorry, I hope you don't mind if I ask.
No,
some
sure, no, go right
questions.
ahead.
So, back to my original question on the difference of setbacks, I didn't get an answer on that. I was just wondering why you claim your setback would be different from the battery storage of our SOP.
yeah, my point was more that like a 200-foot setback, like there's that's a substantial amount of space on any individual parcel. If you're looking at from all parcel
Keeping
map.
track, it leaves you with 3.32 acres to put your battery storage with a
Yeah.
200-foot setback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't leave you much space.
It's cutting your project in half.
Yeah, and that's a big parcel. It's a 17-acre parcel. So like, where are you gonna site? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's what's left, 3 1/3 acres.
Right.
Okay.
So, in my point also being like, if you have a solar plus energy storage project, I know, I think some of that was measured from the center point of the array.
Yeah.
Or maybe in this case, it was actually from
I
the,
think it was from the
battery
tree
itself.
line, if I remember the tree line.
right. So, that said, I think Mr. Cavallo
That would-
pointed out that
yeah, I can
you're reducing your
understand
system
that.
size to a point where you might be able to put one battery unit, but that's not the use case of something like
This one.
this.
That's no less than 200 feet from a property line, no less than 100 feet from the tree line vegetation buffer. So it's 200 feet, I'm going from the property line. And I'm assuming you wouldn't be spilling into the high voltage line corridor. So I'm stopping there, so that's 3.3 acres.
So that would, okay, I can understand that. And you would have access to water?
3.4.
Yes, so we talked to the fire chief about that. There is municipal water on Maynard Lane right now. So it'd be something that we would have to work with the town to figure out the best way to address.
To address, right? 'Cause
3.47 acres.
I'm sorry, you said there is no water, or there is?
There's not on Maynard Lane, so that was a discussion with the fire chief.
Yeah, the nearest hydrant, I believe, is on Chestnut,
That's right.
and that's, I think it's 1,400 feet away, I wanna say, 1,400 to 1,600 feet, I think it was.
I think that's right.
Pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Do you have
That
any,
development doesn't have water?
I don't believe it has a water main that
Maynard,
is
yeah,
available
I'm
for the fire chief,
surprised.
is what I was told. That's from the fire chief. I can chief.
Yeah, town water stops up there at Chestnut,
Yeah.
yeah.
I thought the water ran down North Street.
do any of your projects that you've done have wells on the property?
We haven't done that on any of our projects to date. We do have projects where there's a dry pipe system provided with a fire department connection, with a fire hydrant nearby. So the fire department's pumper truck would connect to the fire hydrant and then pump into the dry system. The type of units that we're looking at are already plumbed for that dry pipe connection, but they're also available with an option for a clean agent fire suppression system. So, we would be looking at both of those.
Okay, so like a chemical, like what you'd use on a chemical fire, correct?
It would be similar to that,
Right.
right, an aerosol, clean agent.
Yeah, 'cause I was gonna say, you wouldn't really wanna use like an Ansel type thing on that, because then if you have batteries, and that battery's targeted to go out, then, if you have any internals like that, it may ruin the rest of the system, you would think, right?
It's, yeah,
It's contaminated, so,
that's the case, but
Yeah.
each of these are a contained unit.
Right,
they're
so-
modules.
yeah.
So each one has its own system, so you could target it to that particular module without affecting the rest of the system.
That's the concept behind it, the form factor of these things is a layer of the,
Is that
Fire
like,
security.
ad alternate when you purchase the system, or do they all come with that?
The aerosol fire suppression system is an ad alternate, so
Okay.
that's an option that you can add. The dry pipe is a standard.
Sure.
How many megawatts is this you're looking at?
must be 205.
205?
If I recall, electric fires are not, water is not the best thing for 'em.
It's not typically the preferred method of suppression. In this case, when it's containerized, they do use a deluge in some cases, but, you know, we depend on our internal experts to deal with that. There will be a full emergency response plan prepared for this.
Gentlemen, any other questions?
No, I'm good, so far.
So am I, so am I. I greatly appreciate you guys coming out, and I know this is, you know, very similar to the informal presentation that was presented in the beginning, with a little bit of difference, but I do appreciate you guys coming out, and again, you know, we're looking at public safety is our main charge, you know, and I know that, you know, this is the future in front of us, so.
That's right, thank you, appreciate you
Much
having us out here
appreciated.
tonight, I'm
Again,
sure.
if you
we'll
guys have
be back
business
soon.
cards, please, you know, if you would, make sure that our office manager, Mrs. Easter, gets those, and you forward some
Okay, directly?
information, please, if you may. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, appreciate it.
That's all right if you don't.
Oh, you guys are ready to roll, huh?
That's all right.
You had a little bit of a ride, I guess, huh?
Have a ride, yeah.
A little bit of a ride to get out.
Where's
I'll get
that?
it from
Oh,
Jeepers.
done that quite a bit.
Perfect, perfect.
Thank you, appreciate you guys, gentlemen, coming out, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Any pertinent information you guys can send down, we absolutely, we love that.
Yeah, yeah, that makes much more sense, obviously.
Site plans,
I happen to be in the Kushner quite a bit, and you know, I would like to take a look at that. I'm concerned about the noise, I'm concerned about the
Maybe
visibility,
with much, so.
the
it's
surrounding
definitely
homes, that's,
Fire chief.
well, we're early in the process, that we'll be starting
Yeah, this is gonna be a
studies
good,
on
probably a good
noise,
solid 2 to
visual
3 year process, even before the.
yeah, well, you know what, that's okay.
Yeah, no, just the more information that we can
The more
garner,
we know, the
so,
better it is. There's nothing like an educated customer as far as I'm concerned.
absolutely agree.
Talk to
So,
them.
gentlemen of the board, I believe we're still on, and, I'm just gonna move on to agenda item number 5. And that's the approval of the meeting minutes of March 16th, 2022. I'll entertain a motion.
Moved.
Motion's been made by Mr.
Second.
Coonan and seconded by Mr. Figueredo to accept
Not
the
yet, but I'll
meeting
hand it.
minutes of March 16th of 2022.
You too.
Aye.
Aye.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that motion
You have to
carries.
say it twice.
I'd like to request editing the YouTube video, thank you.
Excuse me. Mrs. Easter, any correspondence for this month?
None at this time.
We do not have any public input. I just want to remind members, so we have nothing for April 20th.
No, let me double check, I don't think so.
Jeff Cavallo will be absent.
Yes, he will.
He'll be in Washington DC.
Understood.
Nope, nothing for April 20th.
Okay, so just as a reminder that our next meeting will be May 4th, 6 PM.
April
here
20th.
At Old Town Hall. No, there will be no meeting on April 20th.
Oh, there is no meeting on
There'll
April.
be no
Is that
meeting.
I
because
don't
I'm not
have
here?
anything for the
That's
agenda.
right.
Nothing on the agenda
because I'm not
right
here,
now,
right?
so.
Yeah,
Unless things drastically change between now and then, so. but, I don't anticipate a meeting, so it'd be May 4th.
Go ahead, edit that out of YouTube as well.
So I am going to, at this time, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. And seconded. Any further discussion on adjournment? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you very much, cable TV, as always, and thank you residents of the town of Dayton.
Good night, Dayton.
Enjoy your evening. Good night.